Because it's an intimidating world.
It was, but I just loved it. I felt very kind of, it was like, and I was older when I moved to New York. It wasn't like I was fresh out of college, so I had a little tiny bit of maturity.
Right.
So that's how I did it.
Great. So you were the choir director at
Cedartown High School for 2 years, from 1974 to 76.
And you said your friend was Robert Ray?
He's in Atlanta. He's from Atlanta, and he's a pretty well-known person. He went to New York, and he eventually moved back, but he was very encouraging to me all along. He dragged me to auditions and things. He would play for me, and he was a real good friend and supporter, and still is. And he's pretty well known in Atlanta as an Atlanta entertainer. So, but he definitely was sort of the trailblazer ahead of me and supported me. And I used to sing with him a lot in some cabarets and nightclubs and things like that in Atlanta and New York. So, did a lot of work with him.
Right. Seems like anybody who obtains any sort of job in that world always has somebody who is able to.
And encourages them. So, and I mean, I had a lot of support from people here too, saying, oh, you can, And so I definitely had a lot of support. It was still scary, though.
Right. I'm sure.
I moved to New York on the train like a crazy person. Yeah, I took I don't know. It was just, I did everything wrong. When I first, everything, I did everything wrong, but somehow it all worked out. Yeah, so.
What about the shows that you did in New York or in Atlanta? Can you talk a little bit about?
Well, I was fortunate to do, I think in my, span of time that I was really working, I did 3 musicals on Broadway, and I did 2 dramas on Broadway plays, just because I did along the way become more of an actress. I took acting classes in the city, and so I was fortunate that I got to do a couple of straight plays in New York as well as the musicals. So, by the time there's always the chance I could work again at some point, but since I've been a mother since it's hard to be out at night, and so the theater was interrupted by all that. So I did those shows, and then I also did a lot of shows. I worked at Theater of the Stars in Atlanta. Is how I got my first big show. Was back before I moved to New York. Came back there a time or two and worked at Theater of the Stars in Atlanta and some other theaters there. But all of the country. I did a lot of regional theaters all over the country and some national tours. As an actor, you just are looking forward to any work you can get. And I certainly had times where I wasn't getting any work, and it was hard. And then you get older and you have to kind of adjust to that. But always really trying to work on my. I hate to use this word because it sounds pretentious, but trying to work on my craft, whether it be singing or acting. I always tried to continue, and then in '94, actually, while in the city, I went to Hunter College in New York City, and while I was still working as an actor, I went to Hunter and got my master's degree in voice performance.
Keep up the good work.
Bless your heart. That's good to see you. Good to see you. So I did go back and finish that music. I always wanted to finish the master's, so I went back and got that degree in '94, and that's been actually wonderful. I had a wonderful teacher. That I got some little scholarship money that for 2 years I was with her. And then I had a lot of other teachers in the city as well, singing and acting teachers. And you just keep trying to get a little better and improve and just change as you have to. It's a hard life, though. I really would not advise anybody to do it unless if they have any interest in anything else. But I really felt
you have to take your knocks and
it's a hard life. It's a very hard life, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Right.
So I've had amazing experiences. So and I'm very grateful for all the friends I have up there as well in the theater. They're as important to me as all my friends here.
Right.
So I feel lucky to have had both worlds in a way.
Now, are you teaching now?
I do teach voice privately. I'm also a choral conductor. I always had I started as a choral director, and I'm a choral conductor in some groups, and I also am a music director for a church. Is another part-time job I have, and I do the private teaching of voice and piano. So I do all that. Occasionally, I'll do a little bit of some readings and things like that in the theater, but mostly I work now as a musician. So, because I had that piece, I've been lucky I've been able to have some work, and that's a good job for a mom.
Right. Where are you working? Where are you based at?
I live in Chappaqua, New York,
Okay.
so that's where I live and work out of Chappaqua. PPAQUA. Yeah, and
Is that upstate or?
it's only 30 miles north of the city. It's where Bill and Hillary Clinton live, actually. Some people have heard of it because they live there.
Okay.
And, you know, especially when that's where after they left office, or he left office, now
Right.
she's in office.
Right.
They bought a house there. And it's a lovely, beautiful community. Yeah, and it's extremely convenient to the city. So if I need to be in town for anything, it's been great. And there's a lot, I have a very strong artistic community there and in some other surrounding communities. So I have a lot of, you know, people to draw on for that. It's very, yeah, and if I need to get into the city, I can for, you know, quickly in or see a show, whatever I'm doing. So it's great, and we enjoy living there. I mean, sometimes I think of would like to be here. My husband's from the Northeast, though, so it might be a little hard to drag him away from the New York Giants, you know.
Right.
So we used to have season tickets to the Giants. So yeah, but yeah, so that's exactly how I felt. So,
what are some sort of highlights of your career that I could put into the? Or I looked you up online to see if you've been in Oklahoma. I've read about Oklahoma.
yeah, you know, sometimes when you look me up online, if you put Catherine Campbell Broadway, if you Google me that way, if you Google, oh, you did, oh, you were smart, because sometimes there's this New Zealand woman who comes up with her career and her pictures and everything. My first show was Oklahoma, and then a couple years later, I got into the Tommy Tune show 9. Which ran, you know, was the best musical of the year, and all that. I was fortunate to work with him briefly. And then I started working mostly out on the road and started trying to, I kind of got hired those first couple of shows, just my voice, I think, because I had a big voice. And then I started really trying to develop craft as far as performing and acting and singing. Well, just the whole thing. And so I started, but I did start going out to some smaller regional theaters and doing roles and things, parts that, one of my favorite, one I was up there on the wall when I went out to Cleveland Opera, and I was one of the ugly stepsisters. They said I wasn't ugly, but I was one of the stepsisters in Cinderella, which was fabulous. And then also I did Audrey in Little Shop of Horrors down in Sarasota.
That was fun.
And those were probably two of my favorite roles I did. And so I started doing that kind of in some tours and things. I did a Neil Simon tour of a play, and then I went back to started. I said, well, you know, I'm getting older, and I decided to go back to school while I'm in the city and get my master's. But then, of course, right after getting that, I got in production on Broadway of Tennessee Williams' The Rose Tattoo. So, you know, I got that music degree and almost immediately got a Broadway play. So I was like, you know, best laid plans of mice and men. And that was great. Yeah, and so that was a huge highlight because there was, and I got to, you know, along the way I also got to work with some stars and things who were just so fantastic to get to work with. I mean, I was never a star, even close to one. I was just a working class, you know, a blue collar
class actor.
Or, you know, but I was fortunate to get to, and then the next year I got to go back to that same Circle in the Square, which is a really respected theater. So I'm very happy to get, and I stood by for a role, a lead role the next year and got to do that. And then I got in this new production of Footloose, which was a musical based on the movie, and that was a brand new original cast production, so I spent 2 years in that. And then right after that closed, so there were the shows, you know, the plays, and then that back to a musical. And then right after that closed, I became a mother. My son's adopted from overseas, and so I went to get my son, and you know that just changed my life completely. And I just
the focus shifted.
Completely shifted.
Right.
Yeah. So I still did work a little bit more after that, but I found it very difficult, especially with the younger. You know, it's just hard. So I'm not such a morning person anyway, and if I was out so late with a show and then had to get up really early, I wasn't so good at it. So, and he didn't like me to be away at night.
Right.
He wanted me there. It was awful. Yeah, I just missed. I hated missing his bedtime.
Right.
So we were actually in Philadelphia for 2 years, and I did a couple shows there. And it was fun. I was miserable. I just said, you know, I can't do this anymore. So fortunately, about that time, all these other things started to present themselves for me, the musical conducting and those musical direction.
Put all that energy into.
Yeah, in him and be creative still. So I feel lucky that I've got, that, and I'm just starting, and he's getting older, and I'm starting to look into a few little other things that might, in the acting world that might work out for me. But I'm very fulfilled and happy. I'm just happy to be here, be healthy.
Right, absolutely.
All those things, so.
Well, I guess sort of as a wrap up, if we could just, if you could comment on maybe your upbringing in Cedartown, what that meant to you as an actor, if there was any connection at all, or...
Well, yes. Back when I was coming up, there were no theater. I had never even seen a play until I was in one in college. Because back then, there was no theater coming through town, or there was no local or community theater. So there was nothing to sort of, for you to see, to kind of go, oh, I could do that. But what we did have was church choir. I mean, I took piano lessons from age 7 on, but I had that, but I had church choir. So all of the really experience I had was in the church choir and singing solos and just, it was so wonderful to have that. And, back then a trip to Atlanta was a big deal, so, and once I was supposed to go to Atlanta to see the ballet and got sick and couldn't go. So, we just didn't have those opportunities like they do now, and certainly no theater group. We had our dance recitals and things like that. But anyway, so I think, and also I just think when you come from a small southern town, it just gives you a sensibility, a sense of humor, and I really believe that it made me different in New York. It sort of made me stand out. Now, sometimes that would go against me because my accent was so strong, and I did work very hard to get rid of it, but it was hard. But it gives you just a sensibility and a sense of humor that I think is different and helped me many times to get the job. And my friends just, I'm definitely, I think, they're sometimes just can't believe it. I go, well, you just have to come to Cedartown, then you'll believe it. You'll know exactly why I'm the way I am. But, I do love New York, but I do sometimes miss the more friendliness of the South. But I think that was something I carried with me and really didn't lose. And that nor my accent, as you can tell. Although it has gotten a lot worse since I've been.
How long does it take you after you get back here to cut over to a southern accent again?
Oh, you know what? I don't ever lose it. People always ask me all the time up there, where are you from? You're from
Was
the
that right?
South, obviously. Yeah, oh, yes.
My son-in-law is from Canada, and he lives in Alabama. After he's been up there for a week to visit his mother, and he comes back down, I can barely understand him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that.
It goes native, huh?
It's so cute. I can.
You smell
A boat? You hear those little hockey players going, a boat? Well, it was a boat, this boat, I got pretty good at doing other accents, some of them, In fact, it was easier for me to go to a completely different accent than to try to just be a standard American accent. If I could switch into something completely different, I was better off because it was so easy to fall in. And the thing that you never lose, I think, is the rhythm. The rhythm of your accent, that sort of lilting thing. So I probably could have done more, but I just, it's funny because I felt sort of, I think in my core that there was something disloyal about losing my accent.
I can see that.
And there was something in me that just could not. Yeah, I couldn't. It was like I would not be myself. And I know as an actor you're not supposed to be, but fortunately 2 of my plays I did were Southern, so I didn't have to worry about it. So it was good. So, yeah.
Well, the road set too.
Yeah, it was great. Although I had to do a little bit different Southern accent because it's New Orleans. So we actually had a coach, a dialect coach, to give me a different Southern accent. Yeah, so, but it was not so hard for me, obviously. It was a lot easier to be than somebody from Brooklyn or something. So, but, I feel grateful for all the experiences I had. But I feel lucky to be from Cedartown.
Just had a very diverse
I have, and I became a mother very late, and,